Hello, hello. Welcome to a Dreamer's Experience Conquer the Chaos. My name is Sean Laurie, and as a father of four and an entrepreneur, I want to give you guys different insights or tools each week from either myself, my wife, or others that will not only help you as an individual, but also as a parent conquer the chaos.
And hey guys, my name is Tiffany Lowry and I co host alongside my husband. I do wear many hats, and the two that I'm the most proud of is being a mother and a wife. We've had many chaotic moments as a family, but have somehow always managed to conquer the chaos. And that's why I'm excited to be here with you guys to share part of our journey.
Yes, yes. Real quick, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, right? If For fathers out there, if you're looking for a safe community, a place that you know that you won't be judged, and it's gonna be something that's gonna just really be beneficial to you. I create a community for us fathers called No Perfect Father, and you can go in there just by going to conquerthechaos.net. Also, for mothers, fathers, it doesn't matter if you want that more one-on-one approach, right? To get that family that you envision for yourself and be able to conquer the things that you want to conquer, whatever that is. You can also do some one-on-one with me, and you can also do that by going to conquerthechaos.net. So, guys, as we start, we like to do icebreakers. So, I'll probably catch my wife off guard with this one, but the icebreaker for you is, how would you feel if our kids called another woman mom?
Mm. I don't know. I think I have mixed feelings about that. I probably wouldn't be okay with it at first. Um, I don't know. Maybe not so much. Like I think if they called somebody else mommy, I think I think it'd bother me a little bit more. But like mom, other forms of like mom, I guess I'd be okay with. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, I'm not gonna be okay with that at all. So they would have to come up with some type of nickname or something. Um, yeah, because that would definitely be difficult for me, for sure. And the
Mhm.
reason why, I'm talking about this because I want to dive into um, as step parents, right? Step parents, and what does that look like? Um, so I guess I want to ask you, what was it like when you first found out, because you grew up with a stepmom or you had a stepmom.
Mhm.
What was your first reaction? Like, I don't know how old you was, but what was your first reaction to having a stepmom at that time?
I don't remember how old I was. I might have been like 8, maybe.
Okay.
I can't remember. Um, but yeah, I think being that young, I didn't take to it um, that well. I didn't want to call her mom just because I'm the only child on my mom's side. So, she was a single parent for a while. So, and I spent most of my time with her.
Mm.
So, calling somebody else mom, I was like, it just didn't sit right with me at the time.
Yeah, and it's funny because mine's is probably a little bit different. Hearing that because growing up, especially when I was younger, I didn't see um, my dad like that. So
Hmm.
um, when I heard, my mom was getting married and I was gonna have a stepdad, um, I was more so excited because of the fact that he also had kids,
Mm.
right? And so I was like, oh wow, I'm gonna have a big brother, I'm a big sister, and it's just gonna be a big family. So for me, it was that excitement,
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, okay, cool, this is gonna be a added addition.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know a lot of times it's not that way. A lot of times it is similar to how you felt, where they're not taking to, oh shoot, I'm having another person that is quote unquote my mom, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So I guess, what is your thoughts when you hear that now? Like when you hear stepdad, stepmom, what is your thoughts on that now? And then what is, I guess, some of the stigma, um, from that?
I think I'll start with the stigma. Obviously, well, okay, let me backtrack. I don't like using the step in front of it. Like now, I think being older, um, I don't know. It's just something I just don't like it. Like um, bonus. I've heard a lot of people say like bonus dad, bonus moms, like stuff like that, bonus kids, step parent. I don't know. To me, it just sounds like I think growing up, I'll use the example Cinderella, right? She had the evil stepmom, so different things like that. I think there's that stigma behind like the quote unquote step um, usage. Now, me being older, um, I view it a little bit differently. Like, my dad's ex-wife, um, I don't call her my stepmom. Um, I refer to her by her first name. But yeah, I don't look at it as a bad thing anymore now that I'm older.
Yeah. I guess to piggyback off of that, I guess my first thought now is changed, um, because obviously my experience wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
But you just hear like, oh, stepmom, stepdad, like, oh, what happened? Like that would be my first thought, like, what happened for you to be a stepmom or stepdad, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Are you okay with that, right? Because even for me, that was a struggle for me at first, where I'm like, I'm not sure if I can be a stepdad,
Mm-hmm.
but like what Tiffany said, we definitely don't even like, I don't believe in that. Like even growing up, like my brothers, my sisters, like I don't consider them step, like they're,
Mm-hmm.
in my eyes, they're basically blood, so they're my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess growing up in that, and then now being quote unquote a step parent again, I
Mm-hmm.
don't even. It's like weird for me saying that, but I guess it changed for me because that stigma is where, oh, the stepdad is this or stepmom's that, right? Where it's like this quote unquote evil person or this mean
Mm-hmm.
person, and I'm sure we've all seen it before where those step parents, there is those step parents that do act a certain way because, oh, that's not their biological kid and things like that, right? But for me, I want to make sure too for our oldest that she never feels that um, I treat her differently,
Mm-hmm.
or that I basically don't want to spend time. It's basically having that wall up there, because that's not a great feeling at all. Where you feel like
Mm-hmm.
you're an afterthought, or you feel like the other child is more important.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for me. That's something that I want to make sure that my oldest never experienced. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, so and it's funny because our kids don't even know. Like they all just like, hey, we're all one big family, and that's what
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you say that because it was actually the opposite, I think, for me growing up. Like I viewed my um I don't call her stepmom, or I call her my dad's ex-wife because they're not together anymore, but I viewed her as being like I didn't take to the relationship right away because it was kind of one of those things where I was like, oh, like she's coming to basically replace my mom
Mm,
type of thing. Where and then like you mentioned, like the whole division thing with like you don't want, Camille to feel out of place. I think it was more so for me, I felt like my dad made me feel more out of place than her looking
mm,
back. At the time, when I would go and like visit them and stuff like that, it was the opposite. Like I was like, oh, she's making me feel out of place. But now looking back, like now that I'm older and stuff like that, like now it's kind of like, oh, I see that she didn't make me feel out of place at all.
mm,
Like there were times when my dad would just do silly things and it would it would be him that kind of made me feel out of place looking back at it now. I don't know if that
mm.
makes sense.
Yeah,
But,
So that actually brings me to my next question. And what is, I guess, something that parents, you know, do or don't think about, I should say, when it comes to blended family? Like when they're, basically, like, right, your dad, you got remarried and things like that. What is something that I guess they don't really account for or really like put into consideration?
Um,
So like I'll start. I'll basically like there was times, right, where I felt like not because both of my parents aren't together. So with my dad's wife, at times there was times where I felt out of place, where I felt
mm-hmm,
like I think it would have made us closer if, for example, let's say she was like, "Hey, let me get to know you better,"
mm-hmm,
right? Let me maybe even do like even though I never viewed her as my mom or anything like that, but let us just hang out. Yeah, it would have
mm-hmm.
been weird for me, but
Yeah.
like at the same time, like, okay, let me get to know her,
Mm-hmm.
and she gets to
Yeah.
know me,
Mm-hmm.
and also just um, making sure, I think, as a parent, especially when, obviously, right, if your step parents, um, a lot of times, especially if the other parent is, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. Basically, if your step parent and the other parent, the biological parent, right, is not involved, right, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very crucial for you to even be that much more involved in your child and not have that division.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think, like, to piggyback off of what you said, definitely being conscious about spending quality time with that bonus kid, right?
Hmm.
Like you said, like, there's times when, I know for you guys and for you and Camille, you guys will stay up watching like anime,
Hmm.
or there's times when you guys go on like father daughter dates,
Hmm.
like different things like that, or like making that conscious effort to make them feel like they are included.
Yeah.
you know I think that's really important.
Yeah, creating those memories and things like that, because and obviously if that other parent is still around, right, but they're just not in the household or whatever the case is, when your bonus child, right, is there, making sure you put a conscious effort to get to know them,
Hmm.
right? No matter if that child's only there for the weekend or they're there majority of the time,
Hmm.
make sure you're putting that conscious effort, um, to the point they're not feeling like, oh shoot, I feel like an outcast. I
Hmm.
feel like a guest with my own family. Like
Hmm.
every time I go visit my mom, every time I go visit my dad, I feel like an outcast,
Yeah.
because you don't realize that though, but that's going to also start making them have some type of resentment towards you
Hmm.
as the biological parent,
Hmm.
right? And also make them feel like, oh man, like do they care about me, right? and
Yeah.
and that's not even thinking about, if that other spouse is hurt and they're telling your child something, hey,
Hmm.
you know what, they love their other family more.
Hmm.
Hey, you know what, they forgot about you. Oh yeah, they went to Disneyland and they did this and this, but when you're
Hmm.
around they don't want to do that, right?
Hmm.
And again, it sucks, but like those are things you have to think about. Those are things are like, again, it might be one of those things where, hey, you guys split up, it was a good terms, but then next thing you know, you got remarried or whatever the case
Hmm.
is, and now the father of your child, mother of your child, is start being, jealous,
Hmm.
obviously, and start saying certain things. So it's so many different factors, and it sucks, but
Yeah.
there's so many different factors that come with it, and I just feel like a lot of times we overlook those things,
Hmm.
and then that's where, unfortunately, the child is innocent, but that's where basically issues start coming from
Hmm.
all different directions.
Yeah. I think it's also important to have, talks with your kids too.
Hmm.
Like, hey, how are you feeling, now that, whatever title they go by, like,
Hmm.
oh, how are you feeling when you come over, stuff like that, because kids will tell you how
Yeah.
they feel. Like, I know sometimes it might take a little bit and they may not be able to verbalize how they're feeling, but they can tell you like certain things.
Hmm.
So I think it's really important in that aspect too, because I know for me, I had some of those conversations with Camille, about you. I don't think you knew, but like I would ask her like, "Oh, how do you like?" I think when she was transitioning to calling you dad,
Mm-hmm.
like I asked her like, "Oh, is this something you're comfortable with, or like you don't have to?" Like making sure that she knew like, "Hey, I know that I don't have to do this, but this is something that I want to do myself,"
Yeah.
and letting her make that decision on her own.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important to have those conversations. And we have to also understand as parents, there's going to be different seasons. So if your child is a little bit younger, it probably will be a little bit easier for them to accept
Mm-hmm.
a parent, right? But they're a teenager, for example, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because especially if they was, hey, you was with mom or you was with dad for X amount of years. Now this new person came,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to understand too. Yes, it can be frustrating, but you have to understand where they're coming from. Like their whole world has changed.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be like,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna give them their time, their space, but at the same time having not only you but that parent that's now came in, that bonus parent,
Mm-hmm.
um, for them to make sure that they're putting the effort, even though at times they're standoffish, even and finding common ground, just like as
Mm-hmm.
we do as parents, right? We try to
Yeah.
find something in common. Oh wow, like you used anime. Let's say you realize your bonus child likes anime. Start looking into that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh, they like sports. Oh, they like whatever it is. Oh, TikTok, right? And at times, will you kind of feel silly at times? Yes, but it's more so putting that effort in there because then they're like, man, okay, they really care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, they get on my nerves, but wow, like, okay, they're not
They're
that
not so
bad.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're not as bad as I thought they were.
And then I think something too, as parents, we have to be conscious about, right? We also have to remember, like, hey, like, we're the parent, right? So we have to, even though they might be a teenager or, whatever age, like, we have to remember that, like you said, they may be standoffish sometimes, but as the parents, we're the ones that have to put in the work for them to show them, different things.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily fall on the kids. It's up to us to make them feel like included, loved,
Hmm.
like go that extra mile to, like you said, maybe research what something that they like,
Hmm.
whatever. So,
And that brings me to my other question. Is just more so, I guess, what role do you think a step parent should play, right? Um,
mm,
and I know that's a big one too because it
yeah.
depends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it depends on the situation. But I like to put it as, even though you're quote unquote step parent, bonus parent, whatever it is to make things not as weird as it has to be, right? Like
Yeah,
try to make it as
simplest
normal
way to
as
say it.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way I could put it. Certain things obviously are going to change, and they have to adjust to that, yes, but try to have some type of normalcy for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? If they're used to doing whatever it is that they're used to doing, try to do some of those things,
Mm-hmm.
right, with them. And obviously it depends because okay, are you able to yell at that bonus child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to discipline them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that gets complicated too, right? And again, doesn't mean like, oh, yeah, you spank the child, so I'm gonna spank the child. No, but just more so, hey, when I say something, yes, at times I may have to raise my voice. Is
Mm-hmm.
that okay?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that comes to the communication between the bonus parent and the biological parent, and finding that common ground, like, and coming to an agreement on that and having that communication where, like, for example, with, I'll use Camille. Like, I know when we were, first dating and stuff like that, and even when we were first married, like, I know you were kind of like hesitant about doing certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I had told you, like, hey, no, like, if she's doing something, like, discipline her, like, say something.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like, no, you are not her biological parent, but you're her dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I think definitely the communication between the two parents is crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. When she says discipline, she's not talking about like whooping or nothing. Like it's more so get on her and things like that. But that brings me to what you said, like basically being on the same page.
Mhm.
Um, that's why it's so important for the biological parent and the bonus parent to be on the same page. Um, and I think too to make sure as a parent, because right, like that's what happens at times too. At least from what I've seen and parents I've talking to and things like that is at times what happens is I see a lot of times with the mom. The mom will let the stepdad have more control, more power, and things like that on the discipline side, and then the kid ends up hating their stepdad,
Mm.
right? And it happens with the stepmom too, but they're like, who are you to be like, where they're really just going in, like cussing at them, hitting them, whatever the case
Mm.
is. And especially if the relationship is not even that good and you're trying to discipline them a certain
Mm-hmm.
way. Because again, that's why it's so important to be to kind of make some type of normalcy, right? If they're used to just being yelled at and you're over here trying to get the belt, right? Or if they're used to just getting stuff taken away, and maybe being yelled at, but that's it. But you're yelling at them and you're cussing them out. They're
Mm-hmm.
not used to being cussed out. They're gonna feel like, man, they're picking on me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, oh, they must hate me. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is coming from some type of evil place.
Yeah.
So it's so important to be on the same page. Hey, these are things that's allowed. These aren't the things that are allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure like, hey, this is what I do with my child. And as the bonus parent, I want you to know these are things you can do as well or
Mm-hmm.
can't do.
Yeah. And then coming to a common ground on, on that discipline, like you said, like that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that can be a huge, huge thing. Cause just imagine from the child's point of view, where they're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, my mom, my dad married this person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all of a sudden they're telling me that I have to go to bed right now. Like what? I always go to bed at 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And they're yelling at me and whatever the case is. And that does have that's why too is so important. We've spoken about this before, but it's so key to make sure you're paying attention not only who you have kids with, but who you end up having a blended family with.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times I've seen it where people start acting a certain way, when that other child's around,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or again, you have a blended family, and then you have a kid with the new spouse,
Mm-hmm.
and that spouse, that bonus parent, right, is
Mm-hmm.
treating your biological child different.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like, oh, this child's here now. Like, I just want it to be our family, and they
Mm-hmm.
start isolating. You don't even realize it, but
Mm-hmm.
there's someone trying to isolate your own child because they're like, oh no, we have our own little family now. Like that's the
Yeah.
child that comes on the weekend. Like, no, stay over there.
I think not to get sidetracked, but I think that right there speaks volumes to a person's character. But
Yeah,
that's for a whole different
yeah.
episode.
No, that's
that's
true though.
that's something like, yeah, I no, no. We'll save that for a different episode. Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
no, that's but I mean, it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, like that happens where that's a big thing
Mm-hmm.
that I've seen
Mm-hmm.
where we kind of like, okay, we want things to be like this and we want to act like this child isn't part of the package. Like you knew
Mm-hmm.
beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You knew beforehand that okay, you was gonna have to step up and be a part of not only the guy, the lady that you're with, but also you're taking on this child.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens is, okay, I'm with them. Oh yeah, I'll play nice. And then
Mm-hmm.
now that I got you, guess what? Like I really don't even want your child. Like
Mm-hmm.
now it's your child.
Yeah.
It's not our child. It's your child because we have our own kids. We have our own set of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens, and then all of a sudden your child starts having resentment towards you,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't even understand why. And they're looking at it like, well, you chose to be with this person over being with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the resentment doesn't only happen with the bonus parent, but it also starts happening with the biological parent.
And that's just and that's how you just start getting all these different issues,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I know it's a lot, especially because again, I'm a step parent, so I understand. Like there's a lot, and I can literally, or me and her both could share stories, just a bunch of different stories that we either went through or we've seen. So there is so many different factors that
Mhm.
go into being a step parent.
Mhm.
Um, but I guess I want to encourage you guys as saying that it's not easy, but I want you to know the fact that that says a lot about you. The fact that you not only can love the person you're with, but you can love that child like it's your own,
Mhm.
and you don't see any difference.
Mhm.
Like that is huge.
Mhm.
And I want to celebrate you on that because it's not easy.
Yeah.
There is times where you're like, oh man, am I stepping on toes? Oh man, there. For example, there's times where I'm a little bit more aggressive, right? So I can't be as aggressive with my oldest because that's not what she's used to. At times I could play with her with certain things. But I remember at first when I did it, and I remember I hurt her feelings and it threw me off like, oh shoot,
Yeah.
like and it was just more so like a playful joke. But she
Mhm.
wasn't used to that, right? So I
Yeah.
had to understand that like that wasn't her environment. So if that wasn't her environment, how can I be upset
Mhm.
if she doesn't understand that, she doesn't get it, right? But if I joke with her now, like, oh man, I don't know, your feet stink, right? Just
Mhm.
joking with her, like she can handle it now,
Mhm.
right?
But
So oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
but I think that also like that's a good example because you created that environment for her,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like being her, I mean, she calls you dad,
Mm-hmm.
so in her eyes you're dad.
Mm-hmm.
But like you cultivated that environment for her to make it her feel safe
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have that like that open relationship and that connection with you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like you mentioned, like there's some, bonus parents that don't think it's okay to do that,
Yeah.
so I think that speaks volumes too, because like I said, you created that environment for her to feel safe and to feel normal with you,
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
Um, Now, I guess too, just from your point of view, obviously it's a little reverse, but what is something you can encourage either step parents or parents that now have married in a blended family or even dating, right? Because
Mhm.
even if you're dating, actually, real quick before I ask you that too, to me, again, this is just my opinion. When you're dating someone, don't be so quick to blend your families.
Mhm.
That's just my personal opinion. Um, and that's why I was so cautious when it came to me and Tiffany dating. She'll tell
Mhm.
you right there, like I was like, no, let me make sure I'm in this for the long haul,
Mhm.
right? And it doesn't matter what that person you're dating says. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, that's cool. They can talk a good game,
Mhm.
but until it's actually looking like a real situation, please protect your child because just
Mhm.
like you get hurt because it didn't work out. It's 10 times worse for the child.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, I mean, like we've mentioned before, our kids pick up on so many different habits. So before you bring them around to date, like on both ends, like the bonus parent and the biological parent, like you need to make sure that you guys are both on the same page, because then you bring them around your kid and then it doesn't work out, then okay, boom, that person's gone. And then okay, you start dating again, you bring another person around, then okay, boom, that doesn't work out.
Yeah,
And then and then your kids start seeing these cycles of, oh, okay, well, mom or dad is dating all these different men or women. Oh, well, that's what I'm supposed to be doing too.
yeah,
And then they grow up and then those cycles start. So.
yeah, yeah. And like I was saying too to the parents to make sure you protect your child so they get attached to things like that because that happened to me. Even though it wasn't working out, they were married, but when my mom and him got divorced, it affected me a lot. Like I was
Mhm.
hurt by it. So it goes the same for dating. On top of that, I'm talking about the biological parent and the child. Also, I'm talking about those that could be the bonus parent. Protect yourself because you'll get attached too,
Mhm.
right? You'll get attached. You're like, oh man, I'm ready to be stepmom. I'm ready to be stepdad,
Mhm.
and then it doesn't work out, and you're hurt,
Mhm.
right? I had a friend who was willing to play that role,
Mhm.
basically, and he ended up getting more hurt
Mhm.
because of it. So, you want to protect yourself as well. it's one of those things we don't think about, but think about, that whatever, the Johnny, I don't know why I'm using Johnny, but Johnny's 10 years old, or Jesse, whatever, she's 10 years old. You get attached, you guys are dating for 3 years, you get attached, you're like, man, this is basically like my child.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden the person you're dating dips on you.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're hurt by it.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, 3 years is a long time. Probably should have got married, but you get what I'm saying. Like you were dating for whatever, 6 months, a year. So be very cautious. Be it like not everyone. Just like I feel like not everyone should have the privilege to sleep with you, women or men. Like
Mm-hmm.
they shouldn't have the privilege to be in your child's life either,
Mm-hmm.
unless you really know that they're worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to share that, and I guess real quick. Then I guess, is there anything you want to encourage those parents or step parents,
Like in regards to
just those that might be dating or might be trying to figure out, like, okay, how to kind of go about this?
I think I think you pretty much nailed it. Like just be cautious, take your time when it comes to bringing your child around the person that you're dating. And for the person that is coming into the blended family, like, take your time. Like, there's no rush, because at the end of the day, like, that child is always, they're going to be there. So take your time in getting to know the person that you're dating. And even when you're dating, like, if you know that they have a kid, um ask questions about their child, like, oh yeah, oh, what do they like, get to know the kid before you actually meet them, so you can know kind of like, I guess, like, what stuff that they like, so you're more, I guess, prepared.
Yeah.
And then for the biological parents, same thing. Like, bring up see how the person is when you bring up your child,
Yeah.
because that'll tell you. I mean, that's just my opinion. I feel like that'll tell you, like, a lot about how they're going to take to your child. If you're like, oh yeah, their first day of school was today, and man, they had a hard time, and they're just like, oh, dang, that sucks. And then they move on to the next question. To me, that would be a sign, like, oh, okay, well, they're not really that invested in what I'm trying to talk to you about when it comes to my kid, So
No, that's good. Yeah, definitely. Just like she said, ask those questions. Or those, your date, you have a child, they have a child. Ask questions about how they are with their kids, because if it's one of those things they feel like their child does no wrong, right? Like, you just from the conversations, that might be an issue down the road. Or like, oh yeah, my child does no wrong. This is everyone else's kid. Like, there's a chance then when you guys do, blend your families, your kids and their kids might argue at times, and it's always your kids in the wrong. Right? So you gotta, like, those are things you gotta kind of think about, consider,
yeah,
and be cautious of.
yeah. I think the stigma behind, like, the whole step parent, it is, I think, as I've gotten older and stuff, like, it's definitely changed a lot, because even now, right, like, I still keep in touch with my dad's ex-wife. And I think I mentioned it to you before, like, she keeps in touch with me more than my dad. And when I was younger, like, that's something that I kind of brushed her off and stuff like that. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to, like, appreciate that relationship more too, because she is constantly making that effort. Even now, like, I'm 34, and she's still, like, she made an effort to see us, see me, before we moved.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes, So definitely making sure to make that effort for that bonus parent.
Yeah. No, I definitely, man. It's so much we can get into just on this alone, but and maybe we'll come back around another time, dive into this some more. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for listening, watching, like always. And so before we go, I like to remind you, parents, to never downplay the impact that you have for your loved ones, and just remember that every day you're conquering the chaos. We'll see you guys.
See ya.